she'll connect here. She's pretty good.
Yeah, she'll sit. Did you get it?
Yes.
You got it? Who else didn't get it?
I've never even brought her in, like never. She came when she was like a day old, do you remember?
All right.
Come on, your mommy. Stand up. You gonna join me? Mommy's not gonna leave me.
Granola bar?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. What else? Did you have a carriage? It's too big. No, just sit.
Just sit on a chair.
Okay.
Want to sit on a chair?
But before we start, let's take another empty moment. Do you remember from many years ago? Okay, here's Sarah. Let's hear.
Had my singing competition.
Oh yeah, where did you go?
Did we win that year? Oh, we think we won that year. We would have won last year. Anyone else? Incredible.
No, I have a moment.
Oh, okay, let's hear Lily.
I just shared this with someone Friday night. We had Website Dell sent us a Harvard Paula Shiba, who's currently at Harvard. So I was like trying to talk to her about intellectual things while people were in the bathroom and eating me and pulling on me, and the baby was crying, and I was up there, and it was like crazy. And I remembered, I told her the story of when I met my chesed family in seminary, and I came and it was like flying off the handle. It was like 7 children under 10 in a cardinal's apartment, and Mrs. Relbach asked me to please make a salad. So I started to chop the salad, and she said, no, you are not going to survive here. She said, this is how you chop a salad. And I went back to Mrs. Hagan, and I don't think this should have I don't think I'm like made for that. And she's like, no, you'll be fine. And she was just at my birth with the baby who was here.
Wow.
So I was still very, very close. But I said to this Harvard crowd, I was like, I know that it looks really crazy that I can't like carry on a conversation, but please God, one day you'll also remember this Friday evening. You know. And
Everyone has it? Okay. Go.
Hi everyone. Okay. I'm showing you a beautiful idea on Shavuos, which I think is an original NMT. So if you have heard of this before, just pretend you don't know anything I'm talking about. Okay. We read Ruth on Shavuos. In fact, some people don't even have the minute to read Ruth on Shavuos, but there is a custom to read Ruth on Shavuos. Some people don't even have the custom to read Ruth on Shavuos, but it's closely connected to Shavuos. I'm showing you something very, very beautiful. I'm trying to understand first of all why we read Ruth on Shavuos. I know there's many ideas. Rus was Makabel Torah, so we are Makabel Torah. Rus this, Rus that, Rus the other. Very nice. She made an amazing commitment. Torah is about commitment. But there's a very basic idea brought down based on the Gemara, which seems to be almost like a strange connection. If you look at source number 1 with me, I won't make you read, don't worry. But Omar David, Aval Pisha Gadol Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashemayim Shemayim L'Hashem, Va'aretz Nosna Livnei Adam. David says, even though Hashem said that Shemayim is part of Hashem and Oretz was given to mankind, so what does this compare to? He basically gives the example that there was a king, the people of Rome said to the people of Syria, you stay where you're with and we'll stay where I am, and nobody should mix together and we'll all be okay. Just like that, Shamayim is Shamayim, it's Hashem's Geschäft, it's His business, and Aretz is Aretz, like we're all fine down here, everyone should just stay separate. And then Hashem came along, it says at the end of this medrash, it says very amazing, it says Hashem came wrong, Litin Torah, Hashem wanted to give us the Torah, so Bozel Gezerah stuff, he just gets rid of this idea. It shouldn't be that Shamayim is Shamayim and Aretz is Aretz, let's merge the two together, and let's that kind of like union be together, therefore it gives us the Torah. So what was the whole point of the Torah? The merging, and therefore it says, Vayirat Hashem al Har Sinai, Hashem comes down to Har Sinai, so Hashem already brings that one out, and what happens to Moshe? Aval Moshe Amar Ala El Hashem, go up to Hashem. So we've got this merging of two worlds, where we go up and he comes down, and that was basically the significance of the Torah. It allowed the two worlds to come together. Okay, that's pretty significant in terms of what's happening in Matan Torah. It's a merging of two worlds, which seem to be opposites, and in fact opposing, never mind just total opposite, but I really like differences. But it's a very strange thing if you look And I know, again, there's many different reasons. But there's a certain few things about Shavuos. In fact, people find Shavuos very, very hard to connect to. And, you know, when you're here after a few years, you suddenly realize, like, Shavuos is coming, it's okay, it's like a Shabbos, it's like a one-day wonder, right? I mean, Milchik is a bit of a patchka, but it's like, it comes and it goes. You wait for Pesach and it's a whole business. You wait for Sukkot and it's a whole business. And you're clearing up after getting rid of your Sukkot and everything else. Shavuos comes and goes. And really, it's Matan Torah. Like, what are we celebrating at Sukkot time? Like, they sat in Sukkot and all the different things that, you know, it came to. But Shavuos is huge. Shavuos is everything. It's our identity. It's a Torah. It's absolutely everything about it. And yet, it's a quick one-day wonder. There's nothing, you know, to kind of prepare anything. It's all very speedy. And in fact, the date of it is not even mentioned in the Torah. We just know, count 49 days. So, perhaps if we learn a bit more about Shavuos, we'll try to understand and get what this is all about. So, I'll show you something quite amazing. I'm going to jump a little bit to source number 4. The Gemara basically tells us, before we get to source number 4, that the whole purpose, I'm just happy to say that mine is quiet. I promise you I'm joking, it doesn't bother me in the slightest, I could do much worse, don't worry. The whole point of, really, I didn't make you feel bad, it doesn't bother me in the slightest. Like, I really didn't mean that, I meant that as a joke, 100% a joke, like. So the whole reason why we read Rus on Shavuos is to confirm the lineage of David HaMelech. Right? To confirm the lineage of David HaMelech, right? So, if you were worried where David came from, Shavuos, the whole point of Rus is to confirm exactly where he came from. It's a very strange thing, this one. So why is that? The classic thing, which I'm sure many of you have heard before. It says like this, that anyone from Moab and Ammon shouldn't come and become part of the Jewish people. Gamdor Siri, for generation. If you come from the nations of Ammon and Moab, unfortunately you cannot be Megai, you can't join the Jewish people. Okay, why does that create an issue? Because where did David come from? Moab, why? Because of Rus, and Rus is Moabi, classic, right? I mean, I'm sure many of you heard this before. Okay. Why? So the Torah carries on, the environment tells us, you know what happens? You were coming, you were along the way, and they didn't give you lechem mayim, food and drink. Like, they left you on your own. So they wouldn't have been packed, like, there was no packed lunch or anything. They were just like, they were supposed to come out and greet them and give them food and water. But Derech Chaseisim this time, when they came out this time, and also, now it's very interesting, because Moab had nothing to do with this. So, why are they, like, picked up on this? Well, you know why? Because they hired Bilam ben Ba'ur from Aram to curse them. Okay, well that makes a bit more sense, right? These ones didn't bring any food and water, fine, so they weren't so hospitable, no, you can't marry them. And Moab, you had Bilam and he wanted to curse you, so you can't, it affects everyone generations later. So that's a classic thing. Why, what's the classic thing? It says on Rashi there, Lo Yavei Ammoni, Lo Yisa Yisrael, so you can't marry a Jewish person because you can't convert. Now, if we go a little deeper, there's a very, very interesting Ramban that talks about the fact that there was a difference between Ammon and Moab. Ammon was a nation, Moab was a nation, they both didn't want to give Jewish people. But Moab came along, and he actually said, I'm willing to give you food and drink, providing that, I don't know this one, providing you pay for it. If you guys pay, we'll sell it to you. So that's very, very fair, right? But they was coming, and they weren't a small nation. What they were expecting was everyone to come out, with like in drones, with like, food and drink and all sorts of wonderful things. Okay, fine, you're not going to do that. But they said, we will, if you want food, we're willing to share it with you, but pay for it. Very fair, right? No, you know what? Ramban says, actually, it's not enough either. Therefore, anyone from Ammon and Moab, that's why they're included together. Nobody can marry into Jewish people because of the food and drink situation. Yeah.
Does this also apply to the woman or the men?
So here's what took place here. So there's an amazing Gemara. Okay? Amazing Gemara in source number 7. I won't do it one aside because I'm not that good at Gemara, I'll be honest with you. But anyway, the Mishnah says as follows. If you look at source number 7. Amayni Moavi Asurim. But Asurim Isalem. It's an Isar La'olam. You will never ever be allowed to marry someone from Ammon and Moab. And then it says, Aval Nikvosehem Mutaras Miyad. You can marry the women. Not a problem at all. Who was Rus? From Moab, but she was a woman, so it's all going to be okay. Right? Nope. Mitzvim Adomi, Einam Asurim, Ela Ad Shloisha Doros. Also Mitzvim, by the way, we're also not allowed to marry them. And also Adomi, also not allowed to marry them. But that's only for 3 generations. And that is talking about the Haram and the Kephas. So eventually the Mishnah gets to the conclusion that since we're not allowed to marry him, by the way, this is a bit longish, but then it becomes a bit less longish, okay? So don't panic by my longishness. So since you couldn't marry someone from Mitzrayim, both male and female, therefore it would seem to say you also can't marry a female Ammon and Moab. Okay, that puts us out the picture. How does that affect David? Because through the female line he is not... Huh? He's not Jewish. He's not Jewish. He's not to the Jewish. So the whole reason we read Rus is to prove his Jewishness. Okay, right. First of all, why is David's Jewishness so important to Shavuos? Yes, this is your right. Good. Okay. Huh? Melech HaMashiach. Well, he's the line of it, right? But I think Hashem could probably figure that one out, right? And in fact, by the way, what would happen when Mashiach comes? If David's not Jewish, then Hashem's going to sort it out. By that time, Mashiach will be Jewish. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not going to send a non-Jewish Mashiach on a donkey. We're all going to be like, no, who are you? I mean, it's like, the couple story, right? No, it'll be sort of that. Or Hashem will send it to a different line. It's fine. We can Mashiach on Yosef. Maybe he'll convert him. I don't know. They'll sort it out. They'll work it through, right? What really has significance to David HaMelech got to do with Torah? And by the way, when did David come? Who came first? Chicken and egg, David or Torah? Torah. So the whole point of reading Rus on Shavuos is because it proves God's lineage, which really has got nothing to do with the Torah. What's the connection? So now I'm going to show you the Gemara. Okay. The Gemara brings a fascinating story, which I think many of you may have heard before. And it says this. I'm going to go through it, but if you want to, I'm like 5 lines down basically. And he talks about this, that Shaul at the time, after David had killed Goliath, so Shaul wanted to know, he got a little bit worried, because there'd been this kind of like, Goliath was taunting the Jewish people for many, many days, and Shaul had tried to kill him and not managed it, and David kind of basically came along, and with his slingshot, like his kind of trusty thing, knocks Goliath over, and the miraculous thing, rather than him falling backwards, he falls forwards. David comes along, chops off his head, and the end is history, right? So Shaul gets very, very concerned. And he comes along and he says like this, he says, when the whole episode happened with Goliath, he says to Avner, who's Sarah Tzavah. Now when you learn Novi, you think like Avner, so he was a Sarah Tzavah, which means he was his, General. His general, right. When you learn about Avner being a general, we assume that means what? Like the army. Right, something to do with the army. But actually, on a very deep level, Novi is, full of profound things. Actually, Avner was a Talmid Chacham, so he was asking something much deeper. And he says to him as follows, Bemida Hanar, whose son is he? This is Gemara repeats the story. And Avner turns around and says, Vayima Avner, Chai nafshach HaMelech im yodati. I swear by your life, Hashem, the king, im yodati, lo yadati le. Don't you know? You know who his father is. Now, why would Shaul know who David's father was? Because it was very famous. There was nothing hidden about him. You know exactly where he comes from. So Avner's saying, I know, we all know where he comes from. Who is David's father? Yishai. So why are you asking the question? What Shaul's really asking was, who does he go back to? Does he go back to Peretz and Zerach, who initially were from Yehuda, where the kings of the Jewish people are going to come from? What's Shaul really asking? Right. He's Jewish. Is he got potential to become king? As in, do I need to worry that he's in competition for me? Right? And you know how the story, half a second, later the whole thing happens that Shaul spends much of his time actually trying to kill David. Because of Malchus, right? He's worried he's going to become king and he wants to stay the king. So the whole thing's actually a very, gets to be a very treacherous, jealous situation going on there. Go on.
When is this dialogue happening? Because wasn't David king first?
No, Shaul was king first.
He was king.
Shaul was king for 2 years first.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so he's really asking, what's his lineage? Can he be a potential contender to my kingship? Right? And by the way, Shaul also knew something else. How was Shaul anointed? Anyone know from Novi? With a shemen, but with a jug. Right? Whereas David gets anointed with a horn. That's right. Because the oil flows through, which means from you, kings are going to come from generation. Your child and their child and their child and their child. Whereas Shaul ends, and therefore his is also going to end. So Shaul already knew that his kingship wouldn't go on forever, it wouldn't transpire onto his children. So he was already worried. Maybe this is the guy who's going to come and try and take the kingship away from me. So he says, Ben Mizeh. Huh? Well, so he wasn't actually asking him either. What he's saying is, where does he come from? Can he be a contender? Right? And Avner says to him, he goes on, he says a few lines down, he says, so Yishai, he comes from Yishai, etc., etc. And he explains to him who Yishai was, and it all works out very nicely. And then, if we go a little bit further, somebody called Doeg gets up. Now, Doeg Hadomi was, I don't know who Doeg Hadomi was?
He was an advisor in the palace?
No. Doeg Hadomi was actually Rosh Sanhedrin, right? But at this point in time, he's actually, there's quite a lot of back in Tehillim. So we'll see a little more about in a minute. But anyway, he comes along and says, Charles, you got bigger fish to fry. Before you start questioning whether he comes from Peretz and Zerach, you've got to question, is this guy Jewish or not? Why? Because of Rus. Because it says that anyone from Ammon and Moav can't become Jewish and can't marry into Jewish people, and therefore, forget David's even going to be a king. David is not Jewish, so that's a bigger question you need to be asking. Now, what was Doeg really referring to here? This idea that Ammon and Moav, right? So there's a whole back and forth now. If you go, I'm looking in the source number 7, like halfway through. Abner turns around there and says to him like this, like fascinating. He says to him, Amoini v'loy amoinis, Moavi v'loy Moavis. Don't worry, it's going to be okay because it only refers to the males and not the females. Right? Now, Doeg, who's a tremendous Talmid Chacham, isn't quite settled with this idea. So now, the whole argument that's taking place is David, never mind is he a king now, is he Jewish or not? Doeg is saying he's absolutely not Jewish. His great whatever it was grandmother's not Jewish, and Abner, who's the Sar HaTzavon, is turning around and saying no, he's Jewish. Okay, there's a back and forth that takes place there. He then turns around and Doeg turns around and says mamzer v'loy mamzeres. Do we turn around and say that if someone's a mamzer, it doesn't include a mamzeres? Right, a mamzer is a child born from an illegitimate relationship, correct? And we don't turn around and say, well, if it's a woman, it's okay, but if it's a man, it's not okay. If your lineage is not okay, then it doesn't actually make a difference. Like, you're not going to be okay. Right? Okay, fair answer. To which he turns around and says, Avner, he says, mitzri v'loy mitzris. Yeah, but we do have the situation with the mitzrim that it was the males and not the females. Okay, so there's a real backwards and forwards going on. Everyone following the argument. Stay tuned, because it's actually quite amazing what takes place now. So then what takes place? So he turns around and says, let me tell you something. Do you know why the Moavi men were not allowed to join the Jewish people? Because they didn't come along with food and water, right? Yeah, food and water for the drink, that's right. However, Darchel Shel Ish Lakadim, you should know. So he says like this. He says, Avner says, it's not just about the fact that they didn't give water. It would be the men that would go out and take. Well, the women are not schlepping all these tons of water and everything else. It's only going to be the men that come out and give water, and therefore only the men sinned by not giving water and food and everything else, and therefore the women are going to be fine. To which Doeg turns around quite fascinating and says, no. It would be the way of the world that the men would give the men, and the women would give the women, and therefore the Moavi women are also culpable. At this point in time, it's a very logical argument, right? It reminds me a little bit of when Abraham and Sarah, right? Who was, they were this like massive cure of, power machine, the pair of them, right? He was Makar of the men, and she was Makar of the women. So it makes absolute sense. You can't say, anyway, they're having this back and forth the whole time. At this argument that Doeg brings down, nobody has anything to say, and nobody can refute him. So he says, quite amazing, right at the end of this Gemara, he says this, hold on. He says, Save a shot base measures, go out to base measure and see if anyone can refute this argument. And nobody can refute it. So he says, fine, basically go and sing it from the rooftops. Go and announce in Basin that David at that point, not Hamelech, David is not Jewish. And that's the conclusion. Until Amasa comes along, quite an amazing thing right at the end of this, and he makes an amazing statement. By the way, it's quite frightening because the Gemara says this, Chagar Charboy ki Yishmael. He grabs his sword like Ishmael. Right? Now, what could the Gemara just have said? He grabs a sword. Yeah. Now, the Ishmael's got nothing to do with this conversation. What does it tell you about that Ishmael? That the first port of call of Ishmael is always violence. It's always the sword, right? So he says he gets like Ishmael, and Amasa takes the sword, which is contrary to the Jewish way of doing things. Remember, by the way, this is a halachic debate taking place. In the middle of Basin, he gets up with a sword and says like this, Kol mi she'ena shomer halacha zu, anyone who hears this and disagrees with this, yidoka b'cherov, will be killed. Right? And he says, Kach kubleni mi beis din shel Shmuel. So I have received from the beis din of Shmuel. Now who is Shmuel? The Navi. And Shmuel was still alive at that point in time. And he says, I've heard this beis din of Shmuel. End of conversation. That's the end of it. David is pronounced as Jewish. You can all be relieved to say it's fine. David's Jewish. We're all Jewish. Everything's Jewish. Moshiach's going to be Jewish. It's all fine. Okay? It's the craziest story. This whole thing is back and forth, right? Like, I mean, the craziness of it is that Doeg actually managed to persuade everyone halachically and reasonably and with logic that actually David is not Jewish, right? And the only way it gets refuted is because Amasa stands up and says to the sword, I receive this and basically accept it or you'll die. Now, where did he receive this from? So there's actually a particular strand of halacha that we have called, it's Moshe Kibbutz Torah Sinai, basically, that Kachma Kublani. If you have such a thing, that we receive it as a Masorah from Moshe at Har Sinai, that's what the halacha is, and nobody can ever come and refute it. An example of that would be Tefillin, Sukkah, Mezuzah, those various halachas that actually, for example, what does it say about Tefillin in the Torah? Right? It doesn't explain what they are. You know, when you think of tefillin, you think of black boxes, right? There's not a mention of black in the Torah. There's not a mention of a box in the Torah. There's a mention of tying, which may give reason to like tying things all around and everything else. There's no mention of everything else, yeah? We get it all as a Masorah. Moshe said, when Hashem said this, you know, wear tefillin, Moshe said this is like what tefillin is meant to look like. And that is a like Mekabel Torah Sinai, and it can't be refuted anywhere. So anything that we have that is that type of thing, it doesn't make difference if it defies logic or not, it's just how it is. So a master comes along and says, all your logic in the world, Doeg, it's irrelevant, I'm telling you now, Kach Mekablani, don't accept it, Doeg. And Doeg has to accept it. In fact, everyone has to accept it, which is why we know that David is Jewish. Okay, so, wonderful, that's very, very nice. Now we know Doeg is Jewish, David is Jewish, and that's why we read Rus on Shavuos. Right? Huh? Makes so much sense, right? Well, anything's not anything. Right, you want to, so the reason we were to Shavuos is to prove it. Right, you see, understand the mission, the Gemara, and that all makes sense. What's anything got to do with anything? Okay. This is what we're going to go much deeper, but first understanding is like this. The reason we were just on Shavuos is because Shavuos is the date of giving of Matan Torah. Giving of Matan Torah, of giving of the Torah, right? What was actually given on Shavuos? The Ten Commandments, that's right, the Luchos, that's right. Together with Torah Shebachsav and Torah Sheba'al were given together. Now, there were times in Jewish history where people refuted this, right, the Tzedukkim, they came along and said that. Right, yeah, and in fact today we have reformed the exact same thing, that basically there is only such a thing as Torah Shebachsav and the Torah Sheba'al was not given. But the whole thing is such an ironic kind of twist on things, because what is it? How do we know the date of Shavuos? If I say to anyone what date of Shavuos, you always say 6th of Sivan, right? How do we know it? 7th, right, okay. How do we know which date it is? Because it's 49 days after Pesach. But what does it say? Usfartem lachem. Usfartem, no, you're not saying the song, you know. Mimachar Shabbos, so the day after Shabbos. Shabbos at that point is referred to as first day Pesach. So we count Spiros Omer, right? Almut to Pesach, yeah, on or second night Seder, wherever you are in the world, we start counting from them. Now, they took the Torah literally, because we know that actually the Torah Sheba'al Peh. They took it to Torah Shebachsav. So therefore, actually, they count from the first Shabbos after Pesach. That's which could be 5 days later. Yeah? This year it was whatever, Monday night was Seder, right? Yeah. So therefore their Shavuos is ironically is like 5 or 6 days out.
Do they actually do it like that?
Yeah. That's how they used to do it like that. Those who only accepted Torah Sheba'al Peh. Torah Shebachsav, sorry. Right? But why do we read David Melech? What's the whole thing thinking? The only way we can prove you had enough. The only way we can prove that David is Jewish is through Torah Sheba'al, through a Masorah that Moshe said, this is the fact, and you have to accept it. Why? So what's the thing? On Shavuos we stay up all night, we learn Torah, we do this, we do that, all the different things we do with Torah we do, right? And in fact, the custom is the people have the custom to tikkun, which goes through Ori Torah Sheba'al Peh and Torah Sheba'al Chtav. It goes the whole thing together. The whole point of Shura is to understand a connection to Torah. You cannot understand a connection to Torah unless you understand it's intrinsically connected both Torah Sheba'al Chtav and Torah Sheba'al Peh. And therefore, Rus is read to show us that everything about Judaism has to be the joining factor of Torah Sheba'al Peh and Torah Sheba'al. You may think I'm only accepting Torah Sheba'al Chtav on Shavuos. You have to understand we're also accepting Torah Sheba'al Peh and therefore read it on Shavuos. Very nice, right? That's a beautiful idea as to why we learn Rus on Shavuos, and that's basically that's the understanding. But on a very deep level, it's to connect the two together. Now. Okay, of course this must go somewhat deeper. So in order to understand this, let's take it a step further. Where did all the issues here came from? They all came from an individual called Doeg. Okay, now Doeg was a Rosh Sanhedrin. In fact, the reason why he's called Doeg HaAdomi, what's Adomi? Right. So I always imagined he was... Yeah, no, you know how we talk about Esau? That it wasn't just that he was gingy, it was that he was red. It says that his blood kind of never settled almost. And he looked like a ball of redness almost. I don't know what that means. Anyway. So I always imagined Doeg HaAdomi was also Mr. Red. But actually, the Gemara says something amazing. And it tells us, you know he was called Doeg HaAdomi? No. He was such a Talmud Chacham that whenever you had any conversation, any interaction with him, you felt like such an idiot next to him that you went red from embarrassment because he made you feel so stupid that he was called Doeg HaAdomi. Nobody was a challenger for him. It was a no-brainer. If Doeg said something, he'd wiped the floor with you. And therefore he was called Doeg HaAdomi, right? Just the type of person you want to get into a conversation with. Yeah? There's Friday nights when you think, no, this is not for me. It's definitely not for you, right? That's why he's called Doeg HaAdomi. Now Doeg had a partner in crime. And his name was Achitophel. Okay? And if you look at source number 8, Omer Rabbi says like this: Arba mea ba'aya ba'o Doeg v'Achitophel. Doeg and Achitophel used to come along with 400 questions. Listen to this. On Migdal Teforech ba'avir. On a Migdal, a tower that was floating in the air. By the way, I think this is where pie in the sky comes from. Yeah. That what they used to come along that there was. If you had a tower that was floating in the air, then they asked 400 different halachic shilas on it, and what would they do? No, they back and forth and argue and everything else, and anyone who came along to kind of get involved in the discussion, they'd wipe the floor with them and that'd be it. Right? Now, Gemara is not just like cute little stories, this was Doeg, this was thing. What is it telling us about Doeg here? Wasn't it he asked 400 questions on something that was fire in the sky? It's telling us about the way that Doeg learned. Doeg was Rosh Sanhedrin. Now, you've got to be pretty high up in the world of Judaism to be a Rosh Sanhedrin. And in fact, I would say a tremendous Talmud Chacham on the highest order. That's why when Doeg came along and thought about the lineage of David HaMelech, you had to really be sharp enough to kind of refute him. And therefore, when he got to a point when nobody could argue it, that was it. Go and say it, shout it from the rooftops, go to the basin and say, that's it. David isn't thinking. If you can't argue with Doeg, you lose the plot. What was it though? It tells something quite deep actually. In fact, look at the source number 9. So they have Isal Kolahu. Basically, the Gemara goes on to say that actually the conclusions of Doeg and Achitophel are never accepted as halacha. Conclusions of Doeg and Achitophel are never accepted as halacha. What was it about the way that Doeg and Achitophel learnt? Just with their brain. What's that mean, just with their brain? A Rosh Sanhedrin can only be just with his brain? Like, Doeg started off absolutely fine. You can't become a Rosh Sanhedrin if you're just a clever guy. It's not how it works, right? And back in the day and everything else. There were times when the Kohen Gadol, during the second Beis HaMikdash, the Kohen was totally corrupt. It's the most devastating time in Jewish history. Where it was so corrupt that how did you become a Talmud Chacham? You paid for it. If you had enough money, you paid for it. And every year they would go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim and every year they died. That's where the string happened from. In the beginning, that didn't actually happen. They used to go in with a string tied around their leg and everything else. Initially, that never happened. It was only at a later stage because it was so corrupt. And by the way, they were so after COVID and it was such a mad world that they were willing to go for it, knowing that on Yom Kippur they would die. You can't fault the system, right? You're not. My friends are intelligent. That was very impressive. You can't fault the system. If you're not worthy of it, you're not going to survive the Yom Kippur. So what happened here? Doeg actually became a Rosh Sanhedrin because he was a respected Talmid Chacham who was immersed in Torah. But unfortunately, his immersion in Torah went to the point that he kind of got carried away with himself, that his intellectual pursuit of Torah took over anything else. And he so was taken by this whole thing that he refuted everyone else. He made everyone else like absolute rubbish, and he just like wiped the floor with people. But all from a place of total genius and total immersion in Torah, but only on a very, very superficial external level. A very deep level, but superficial external, if that makes any sense to you. It wasn't that he was just like, interested in nonsense. It was that he was immersed in Torah. He knew it on an amazing way. But halacha is never, ever, ever followed by Doeg, according to him, because of the way he learnt. Whereas you look at David HaMelech, go to source number, it says, by the way, the Tosfos brings down, he says something fascinating. He says that when it came to Doeg Hadomi, his Torah never ever mogging, it never protected him. We say Torah is mogging and matzel, Torah protects us, and we know it's the powerhouse behind everything else. With Doeg and Achitophel it didn't. Why? Because they're you have to be that our Yirah Shamayim is Kodim L'Chachmasei. Kodim doesn't necessarily mean literally before. What does it mean? It's like, if I'm standing in front of Adina for a second, then you can't see Adina. Yeah? Because I'm Kodim to it. It doesn't necessarily mean it had to come before. It means it dwarfs it. It means it's so much bigger and so much all-encompassing that it covers the whole thing. That our Chochmah has to be there, and it has to be there pronounced. And we have to be able to learn Torah through Chochmah. We use our brains. But first, and foremost, there has to be the overrunning of Yirah Shamayim. And when David turns around, he says this in source number 12, Tuv Tam V'das Samdeini, Kiv Mitzvah Manti. Now, David HaMelech is very much seen as quite poetic. He wrote Tehillim, and if you learn Tehillim, there's every possible emotion, idea, kind of like life circumstance a person could connect to. And it says that when he wrote Tehillim, he put in every emotion anyone would ever experience in the entire Sefer Tehillim, and you will always find one positive that you will connect to if you search hard enough, right? But he still turned, he still turned around and said, the deal of me teaching here was that they had someone for Adina. So we've done very well with our deal so far this morning. He still turned around and said, Tuv Tam V'das Amdeini. Tuv Tam V'das, what's Tam? Taste. Also, reason, that's right. Right? Give me the reasons for your Torah. Hashem, teach me reasons for Torah. What was David HaMelech asking when he says that to him? I don't want Torah just to be,
How could the Torah change?
No, that's not saying that. It's actually much more kind of like simple than that. What he's saying is, I don't want to just be that I'm a Jew that just do because I'm emotionally connected to God. I want to understand the reasons. I want to intellectually connect to this. Who does that sound just like? Doeg, that's right. And Doeg and David are real like contenders for each other. He says, I want to get Torah. I want to understand it. It's like our generation say, if I understand it, I'm going to keep it, right? I want to understand it. I want to increase it. But he says like this, Kiv mitzvosecha hemanti. Why do I want to understand? Because of mitzvosecha. Because of the fact that I want to be able to keep your mitzvahs. And if I understand Torah, I'm going to be able to keep your mitzvahs in a much more pronounced way. Whereas Achitophel and Doeg, when they wanted to learn, it was purely for the stimulation. I had somebody I used to work with many years ago. She was a French teacher in the school I was working in. And she came from an irreligious home. I think I may have told somebody this story before, but it was always fascinating. She told me that her father, every single night, remember this? Her father, every night before he went to bed, he used to learn a page of Gemara. Right, but she was brought up totally religious. They had like a Friday night, like a traditional kind of like family Friday night, but they kept absolutely nothing. So I said to her at one point in time, she said, I always knew there was a Gemara by my father's bed. So I said, why? Why was he doing it? She said he was such a genius that the only thing that stimulated him of everything he did in the day was Gemara, and he actually couldn't go to bed till he'd really used his brain that day. So he'd learn about Gemara every single night. He'd use his brain the most amazing way, and then he'd go to sleep. Right? But it didn't translate into anything because Torah can't take you there. Torah can stimulate you intellectually, and you cannot allow it to filter through. David is a hefach, and that's why, by the way, you should know, we follow halacha 100% according to David, because his whole thing was, give me the intellectual, but let it be pronounced into my mitzvah secha. Does that make sense? And therefore like this, why is it that we read Rus on Shavuos? It's really to prove David's lineage. What does that mean? It means like this, the lineage of David is proved by the fact that Torah is integrated into who we are. That Torah is a part of us. That Torah is not just an intellectual stimulation. It's not just a day or something that I learned that I stimulating, that is fascinating, and the Gemara and the back and forth and everything else, or even whatever it is. You pick up Maharal and you can blow your mind to these things, right? That's wonderful. Only if mitzvah hayamanti, that I can connect very, very, very deeply to your mitzvah, Hashem. When Klal Yisrael accepted Torah, it said Nasa v'nishma, right? We'll do and then nishma, we'll learn. Both sides of Torah are fundamental to being a Jewish individual. So fundamental to connecting to Torah. You could be a good Jew and you can love Shabbos and Yom Tov. You could be a good Jew and love the family time that arrives. You could be a good Jew and make amazing relationships to your community and give it everything else, right? You could even be a good Jew and be fascinated by Torah. But really, to be the best you can be, we've got to have both sides of the coin, where we integrate Torah into our being, and it allows me to create that relationship with Hashem from it. Not just that it sits here, but it flows all the way through me. Which is, interesting enough, why Shavuos doesn't have a date in the Torah, and why Shavuos has no mitzvahs to it. Right? And there's many reasons given as to why. I'm never as exciting, right? As to why Shavuos doesn't have any mitzvahs attached whatsoever. Cheesecake is not a mitzvah, right? Why has it only got minhag and not mitzvah? Because when it comes to Torah, here's something quite amazing. Torah is not about putting it on something only. It's actually about the merging of Shamayim and Oretz. When Hashem gave the Torah, he batel gezerah. He got rid of that decree that said Shamayim Shamayim and Hashem v'Oretz Nasan Le'Adam. He got rid of that whole idea together and he merged the two together. Shavuos has nothing that we do except actually, by the way, you would be fulfilling Shavuos 100%. In fact, most of us fulfill Shavuos 100% perfectly by doing what? No, you're doing something, right? But what are you got to do? A Suda? No, you don't have to learn anything if you don't want to. That sounds terrible. Yeah, but actually, no, all you need to do is keep Shavuos and have a Suda of Shavuos. That's all you need to do, right? Wear Yom Tov clothes, all the regular standard things. There's nothing you have to do, and you've kept it perfectly. Why? The whole point of Shavuos is about saying it's the merging of Shamayim and Oretz. That's what David taught us. And therefore we have to be able to prove his lineage on Shavuos because he's the one that everything's based on. Torah is given in such a way that it's so deeply connected to David because David taught us about that Shamayim and Oretz merge together in one world. That they come together in such a way that I have to actually do nothing on Shavuos. Do you know what I have to do on Shavuos? Literally engage in this world for the sake of a higher purpose. We're not actually meant to do anything. We're not meant to blow a shofar. We're not meant to do anything. We're not meant to grab onto anything else. We're meant to take the physical world and kind of Olal Hashem, bring it up to Hashem in doing what? Normal life. In taking food, but make it into a Yom Tov Seder. In taking clothing, but make it into something that we wear, because clothes. For the sake of merging Shamayim and Oretz. That comes from the idea of David, whose whole lineage, if you go all the way back with Achatoph and everything else. Yeah?
I was going to say with Shavuos, is it unique in that it has the preparation beforehand, so the day doesn't mean until after preparation is done?
In the workings preparation, in the spiritual world.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Which is something that none of the others have in the same way.
Right.
Yeah. You know what's fascinating is this idea of a date, yeah? You will know 6th, 7th of this, of Sivan, sorry, whichever one you do, but there's no concept of date in the Torah. Whereas every other thing we have in the first month, the 7th day, the first month, 15th day, whatever it's going to be, we know the dates, yes? Which is why you can go so wrong and count Shavuos on the wrong day. You know why that is? Because you can't have a Shavuos without Pesach first. Pesach has to come first, and then you can have a Shavuos. What's Pesach?
Exodus.
Right, Yitzias Mitzrayim. Pesach is the wham bam inspiration, right? Seder is so inspiring on every single, it should be, so inspiring. The whole Pesach is Yitzias Mitzrayim and all the makkos that came with it and Kriyas Yam Tov, everything that's taking place. It's like the kind of, most grabbing Yom Tov. So it's children's Yom Tov, this Yom Tov, that Yom Tov. Like, there's so much to it, right? The most greatest level of commentary on anything is the Haggadah. There are more commentaries on the Haggadah than anything else, right? But one night a year, because Pesach is this huge ball of inspiration because it's the birth of the Jewish nation. But Shavuos takes place as a back. In fact, here's something interesting. We learn Shir Hashirim on Pesach and we learn Rus on Shavuos. What's Shir Hashirim? It's a love song, right? It's beautiful, but it's full of emotion. It's all about the relationship and the development of it and the wording. It's incredible, right? But Tachlis, what actually happened in Shir Hashirim? Nothing. There's no storyline, yeah? It's all about loves and kisses and hugs and movements and doves and all sorts of wonderful things, yeah? There's no storyline. What happened? Nada, right? It's just love. I mean, love is wonderful, yeah, but nothing actually happens, right? Whereas you come to Shavuos, what's the story for us? Huh? picking wheat. No, it's very, very practical. Yeah, it's the whole story of Elimelech and his sons, and then you go all the way through. It's very, very, very practical, right? By the way, it's very moving. Let your people be my people. That whole thing, and everything else. Yeah, but there's no emotion in it whatsoever. If you read the psukim, actually, without any encouragement or anything, it's almost like emotionless. So you've got this one extreme of Shir Hashem, which is a ball of emotion, and then you've got Rus, which is like, yeah, that's really what it is. Yeah, why? In fact, and it doesn't make sense because really, what would you want to come away from Shavuos? Most people come out of Pesach, and I don't know if it's because the whole avodah that takes place on Pesach, but most people come out like, so blown away by it, or really moved, or taken, or at least just beautifully answered. Most people come away from Shavuos often a bit flat, like sometimes. It doesn't necessarily give it to us, right? Huh?
Carb overload.
Right, it's actually sometimes can be much, much harder to connect for Shavuos, especially as a woman, than it is for Pesach, than it is for Sukkot, all these things. There's many, many things to engage with on a practical level, and Shavuos is not like that at all. And that's because the real essence of the pnimius of Torah and everything else is much harder to connect to. It's easy to connect to inspiration. You hear an amazing story and you're hearing everything like, wow, exciting. That's easy to connect to. But the nitty-gritty of daily life is not as exciting. It doesn't have that buzz. It doesn't, laundry is not fun. Yeah, right? It doesn't do it for us, right? Shavuos is nitty-gritty, normal life. Why? Because that actually is Torah. Torah is take that nitty-gritty and turn it into ruchnius of our lives. And that's how you read Rus. It's all about the connection of saying, you've got to have a Pesach, you've got to start with your inspiration, and then you carry it through on all those days in order to come to something afterwards. But if you leave it like a doeg, you leave it all in your head, and we don't translate it downwards, we're missing the plot on it. We're not getting it, we're not understanding it. And therefore, even if a person doesn't learn Torah and Shavuos, many, many women don't have the opportunity to learn Torah all night. And it's not even a thing, should be necessary. It's not something we should necessarily be doing. We shouldn't be learning necessarily Torah all night. If you've got the opportunity wonderful. It's not something we should be doing in the same way. Because what are we supposed to be doing? We're supposed to be trying to elevate the mundane. And therefore, our tefillah on Shavuos should be something different. Our eating, our sudas on Shavuos should be something different. Because we're trying to say the merging of the two worlds together. And it's a very, very hard challenge to do. Which is why we need 49 days to get there. Because actually, you can come to Pesach through the physical nitty-gritty, the cleaning, everything else. But you can't get to a Shavuos without the ruchnius work that you've been to until now. Now you might say, 1 minute, yeah? We've only got how many days left? Rosh Chodesh Sivan is on Friday. So there's in fact, by the way, I was coming to Omer last night, and what night was that? So what's today's today? 40, yeah, we're on the home run. This is it now. Everything's 40 on. It's like 9 days to go. Bam. Okay, 10 till Shavuos, right? So you might think, what am I going to do for 10 days? You know that this is the time actually. What should we be doing? It's a reaffirmation of our connection to Torah. What's a reaffirmation of Torah? That my life is full of Torah. Not that I have set times for Torah, that my whole life is about Torah. That I'm thinking about Torah during the day. And it doesn't have to psukim. It means I'm integrating, and that's why David HaMelech, listen to his wording. Tuv tam v'das landeni, keep mitzvaysecha he'emanti. He'emanti, I have emunah in your mitzvahs. What's emunah? The connection to Hashem, that loyalty to Hashem. What is about being a Jew and really experiencing Shavuos for our whole lives and actually getting to Shavuos with that kind of understanding of it? It's that we have to live mitzvahs with emunah. We are doing mitzvahs on a daily basis. You don't even realize it. You get dressed in the morning, you put your right hand in first, you're doing part of our whole lives are part of mitzvahs. It's the easiest thing in the world. They're in the streets available to us. He'emanti. It's got to be that they develop our connection to Hashem through them. Not that we just allow things to sit here. The avodah of Shavuos is to go from here to here. And that's the hardest avodah of life. And therefore Hashem says, don't pin it on a mitzvah. Don't get stuck that it's about a shofar or a sting or, how much you weigh your matzahs and everything else. And did I hear the tekiyos properly? It's not about that at all. Did you engage in your life to connect to Hashem? That's the question you have to ask yourself on Shavuos. Can I engage in my daily nitty-gritty life to connect to Hashem? That's my avodah. And therefore, even something as mundane as just proving David HaMelech's lineage is read on Shavuos to connect to say it's mundane. Torah is about the mundane. Torah is beautiful, it's inspiring, it's deep, but it's about the mundane. When you get up in the morning, when you go to bed at night, and all the different things that you do, right? It's about just saying, on a daily basis, am I connected to Hashem? And therefore, the avodah that we're supposed to take away from Shavuos is to be bringing Him into our lives the whole time. And that's why, by the way, it's quite a break between Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah, right? And it's in the summer. We go through the process of Tisha B'Av, and there's a kind of a 14-week process that takes place of about saying, now I am trying to just live life. I'm trying to engage in the regular nitty-gritty of life. So I wish you a wonderful Shavuos, Chag Sameach to Shavuos, whatever you say on Shavuos. You don't say that on Shavuos, whatever you say anyway. Either way, it's about, taking our daily lives and making them elevated state of Hashem, have a wonderful day-to-day, enjoying all your previous teachers who you haven't seen and everything else, not that I know any of you, but really Shavuot should be something where we're able to just understand that the basis, the core, boring parts of my life are all about elevating for the sake of Hashem. Are you falling? You okay? Can you go? Do you want to?
Yeah. It's so nice to be able to see you when you're done.
Bye for the recording.
Bye recording.